What is going on, Millennial Morticians? Happy Wednesday morning. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of this incredible podcast. I have a special surprise for you guys today, so I hope you're ready to tune in for that. First and foremost, I want to thank our sponsors for today's video, Faveo, Funeral Service Streaming Simplified. Check them out at faveo.org. Well, guys, I hope you're ready to buckle up. I have some exciting guests planned throughout these next couple of weeks as we gear up and get excited for NFDA. But today's guest is even extra special. I'll let him introduce herself a little bit further. We have the CEO, the president and CEO of Homesteaders, Mr. Steve Schaefer. We're going to add him onto the podcast now. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Jaden, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. This is one episode I've just been excited for, and I'm just ready. I'm ready.
That's great. How'd you like me to start? You want me to tell you a little bit about me?
Yes, sir. Let's go. I'm ready.
Okay, great. So I've been in and around the funeral profession now for over 30 years. Worked with a couple national operators, helped build a couple national operators, doing acquisitions and a lot of things, and joined Homesteaders about 11 years ago. Part of that was because of my passion for funeral service, and I also have a passion for really for financial planning and planning in advance. And so it was a natural fit for me. I started as an accountant. Don't hold that against me. But you mentioned your podcast is for Millennial Morticians, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
I'm not a millennial. I know that might shock you, but I am on my way to becoming a mortician. So I'm excited about that, and I will talk a little bit more about that later. But very, very passionate about the value of funeral service and the work that you guys do serving families every day. And glad to be here to share a little bit about what Homesteaders is up to and what I'm up to in my career.
Absolutely. Well, it's a blessing to have you. And I know as a former mortuary school student myself, I graduated back in May. I know the challenges we face.
Yeah, congratulations. It's a lot more work than you think, right?
My parents, I had a few crying conversations with my parents where like, I don't know if I can do this, if this is for me. But luckily I pushed through, and I know for a fact you'll push through too, because passion is what drives you to want to do it. Despite the hardness of it. It's a hard job. So I applaud you for doing that.
And an important job. And anyway, talk more about that later. But what else would you like me to share?
Man, that's a good start. I'll share a little bit about me. My name is Jaden Fowlkes. I'm the president, CEO of J Fowlkes Consulting, and the host of the Millennial Mortician podcast. Obviously, my audience, you guys know me. I've had a passion and a calling for funeral services my entire life. And so I'm getting ready to begin out my career. Graduated from Tidewater Community College and passed the NFDA certification board test. And I'm on my way to take the state test. So once I get past that, I'll be fully licensed. Love funeral service, have a heart for the next generation, my generation of people in funeral services. And I respect the tradition of funeral services. So I want to see how we can blend those two together and make funeral service better for everyone. All together. Well, let's jump right into the questions, Mr. Schaefer. Thanks for the formal introduction. I love that. What do you see as the biggest opportunities for growth in the funeral service industry right now?
Yeah, one of the things I like to share, having been around the profession for over 30 years now, is there's a lot of negative news in the profession. Pressure of talent. Customers are demanding more. We've had, mortality kind of fluctuate around. So sometimes it's good and you're busy. Sometimes you're not busy. Cremation rising, low cost providers, all those things, right? But when you look at for young folks coming into this profession right now, you look at the future ahead, it's green lights as far as you can see from my perspective. I'm looking at the numbers, you see the demographics. There are a lot more families who are going to need the help of all the people who are on your podcast and the help of funeral professionals over the next 30, 40 years. So the demand is there. We have to figure out how to meet those folks where they are and help them understand the value of what we do as funeral professionals. But definitely there's going to be plenty of people who need our help. And I really laud you for doing this kind of work of getting people oriented around how do we take and share the importance of the work that you guys do helping families, right, and blend it with what's happening in the real world and technology and other aspects to make sure we're meeting the needs of families today and what they expect. and there's going to be some change that happens,
Right.
but still just a lot of people who really need what we're going to offer, and the work we do is so important. So green lights as far as we all can see, an opportunity for everyone who's watching your podcast.
Absolutely.
A lot of opportunity in this space for what you're doing, and thank you for joining the profession and being so committed and passionate to it, because the work you do and you will do over your career is so important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. That means a lot. Just coming from you as you take charge in funeral services and what you do in that area of funeral services that is growing. And I feel people are becoming more accepted of and are willing to come in and talk more about it and have more conversations with funeral directors about it. How can funeral homes know if a sponsorship or marketing partnership is really worth the investment?
Yeah, so the funeral profession operates by serving families, and as a funeral operator, your primary job is to take care of the family that's sitting in front of you today, and you've got to make sure that funeral goes off right. So beginning to end, you got to take care of that family, and only get one shot to get that funeral right, right? So you have to be really focused on that. So in my experience, what I've seen over time is that you want to serve more families, right? And that's true of all funeral service, and that's going to make sure you're healthy and strong as a business, and you have a good bottom line, and you make a good income. More families you serve, the better your income's going to be.
Correct.
But you don't want to take your eye off the ball and not serve those families well. So having a marketing partner, having somebody alongside you as a partner to make sure that you're doing the work in the community so you serve more families, and they can plan in advance, and they basically understand the value of funeral service while you're taking care of the families who are in the funeral home now, and making sure you get that perfectly right. It's really a good match of saying, okay, I've got a program that's outreaching to families and telling them about funeral service and why that's valuable, and why it's valuable to think about it in advance. And if you are so inclined to fund it in advance, that's great. But at the same time, I can focus on what I'm doing every day, which is taking care of those families. Someone comes in, they've had a death, they want to make sure, and they want to know that you're going to take good care of them, and you will as a funeral professional. But you don't want to get distracted with some of these other things. So sometimes it's really good to have a partner who helps you do that while you're taking care of those at-need families every day. And yet you're still not missing out on the opportunity to bring more families into your funeral home, and continue to grow your business, which, if in a business, if you're not growing, you're probably shrinking. And it's important for funeral service to be healthy, for young professionals to get paid well, that the business is healthy, as well as we're taking good care of families. You got to manage both, and pre-planning, pre-funding, and getting good average sales on the current business is an important part of making sure the business is healthy, so that you can continue to serve that community. Because again, the work you do is so important. You want to make sure that the business is healthy so that you can continue to do that.
Absolutely. I want to kind of change course here. Homesteaders has been known for promoting the value of funeral services, like we just talked about. How has that mission evolved over the years, and what does it look like today?
Yeah, so Homesteaders has been around for a long time, 118 years. So yeah, so
Way before the millennials.
yeah. So our mission is to be here for the long run for our funeral home partners. The only thing we do is, as an insurance company, is fund pre-need funerals. So we're very focused on keeping the funeral profession healthy. So that's really always been part of what we do. We are a partner to funeral service, and if funeral service is healthy, we're healthy. If funeral service isn't healthy, we're not healthy. So we have a very good alignment with the funeral profession, and we've always been here to try and help the funeral profession be ready for what's coming next. And we like to think that we're thought leaders in that. So over the last 11 years since I've been here, we've really stepped up our game in helping folks in the profession look at what's happening with technology, what tools are available, what families are expecting from a standpoint of interacting and engaging with them. And we've brought some nice, interesting tools to the market that are helpful. So I'll just give you a couple of examples of things that we've helped make sure are available for funeral service. One of our programs is called Alevia, and they basically follow up with the family after the funeral using text and make sure everything's okay. did we finish everything? Or is there anything you felt like we still need to do to help finish out all the work we were doing with you as a family? But then if everybody's happy, they basically route those folks to a Google review. So that program has generated 100,000 five-star reviews for funeral homes over the last 5 years.
Incredible. That's incredible.
But more important than that, it continues with the family through the next year and says on the death date, on the anniversary date, on the birthday, at Christmas, big holidays, whatever, they follow back up and just check in with the family and say, how are you doing? And it's all on behalf of the funeral home. So the family feels like the funeral home is continuing that care through a whole year after the funeral, which is really hard if you're a funeral professional, because you've got that next family to take care of, that next funeral to get right.
And you don't want, I feel like the big thing now, you don't want people slipping through the cracks, right? That's the big thing.
So this way, you use technology to help you extend your care to that family through the next, whole year. And it's worked out really well. Obviously, it's done a great job of generating Google reviews. But the other piece that we found with that technology is that families really are looking for continuing grief support and access to resources. And so that's the next big investment we're making to add that into the mix of really growing the kind of the grief support aspect of that program. So that's going really well. We've developed some other aspects, like we have a e-funeral platform where consumers can go on and start their planning of the funeral on a pre-need basis online.
So from B to B to B to C more. Yeah.
But it basically under the name of the funeral home. So they can go online for Smith Funeral Home and plan their funeral. And they can finish the contract out, but most of them still want to talk to somebody. Mm-hmm. So then they do a bunch of the work and they get comfortable with it. And then we route them to a person they talk to actually come in and finish the process. And that's worked out really, really well. So it increases pre-need sales, but it also increases the ability of the consumer to get educated on the value of funeral service, do a little bit of the work, but then come in and actually meet with someone. Because funeral service, as you know, because you've been around it for a long time, you have great passion for it. It's a people business. It's not likely that AI is going to, take over our jobs as funeral professionals, right? Because people want to work with people when they have a loss, right? And so we know that, and being in the space, we know that really well. But we wanted to help the funeral profession be prepared so that somebody else doesn't come in and just turn it into an online transaction and just direct cremation.
It's a compassion transaction, not financial, not fully financial, right?
Not just financial, right? And so it's really important who's going to serve the family, and we've been able to help establish in the funeral profession a tool to do that and still keep the people part of it as part of the equation. And it's worked out really well. So those are the kind of things we're doing as a partner to the funeral profession, is saying, look at what's coming down the pike. Let's make sure that the funeral profession has all the tools so that some guy who just graduated from tech, with a tech degree somewhere in Silicon Valley doesn't come in and say, I'm going to create the Uber of funeral service, right? Or I'm going to create the Expedia of funeral service. And all of a sudden, funeral service becomes a commodity and people lose the people aspect. We feel like it's part of our responsibility, because we're so tied in with funeral service, to help make sure the funeral profession's ready for, the next 100 years is the way we describe it, is that, we're good today, but let's make sure we're ready for the next 100 years as a profession, because it's too important, the work that we do. We don't want someone coming up in our business and getting in the way of us serving families.
Absolutely. What innovative steps has Homesteaders taken recently to meet the needs of modern funeral directors and families?
Yeah, I would say, the things I was talking about, some of these tools that we've developed, but then also integrating all of that together so that it's easy for the funeral director, because we know funeral professionals are very busy. When they're handling a funeral, they've got lots of details to make sure they take care of. So they don't have time to, necessarily fiddle with technology and other things like that.
Right.
So if we're building a solution, we want to make sure that it ties into all the other things that you're doing. And so we're integrating with case management platforms that funeral homes use, so that everything's tied together and you can see all the information, and it's easy as a funeral professional to get access to that, and really help streamline it in conjunction with everything else that the funeral home's doing, so that it's helpful, but not one more thing that the funeral director has to take care of. because again, you got a lot of details to manage when you're handling the funeral, and you got to get it right. You don't
You know
have
what they say, right? You know what they say. Weddings you can do again, but you can't do again a funeral. Right?
right, and no one's happy if it gets messed up, right? And
Yes,
they
sir.
shouldn't be, right? It's
True.
your job to get it right. You get one shot at it.
Look, people. Look, I tell people all the time. People pay us good money to get this right, so we
Yeah,
have to get it right. And it's a burden. It's a burden of responsibility. But if it's done right, it can leave a lasting impression on people.
it does leave. Yeah, it is impactful and so important both for the community and for the families. That you funeral professionals are that first step in that in adjusting to the change that happens when you lose somebody, and
Mhm.
working people through that acute period of grief that they're going to experience at the loss. And there's no way to replace that. So it's so important. And so when we craft new technologies or new capabilities and bring them to market, we always keep that in mind, that you can't say, oh, well, this is one more thing the funeral director will have to do. It has to be something that doesn't put the burden on the funeral director because they've already got plenty to do. So anyway, that's kind of our philosophy and how we bring things to market, and just excited to be a partner to the funeral service profession in helping get ready for all the things that technology can help us do in helping serve families better, but always bringing it back to reinforce the value of that funeral professional that's helping them in person that day when they've lost their mom, and they're at that visitation or they're at that funeral service, and that's the most important time, and the funeral directors have to be on target and at the top of their game at that point.
Absolutely. Now, I understand you're currently attending mortuary college. What inspired that decision, and what has the experience been like so far? Has it challenged or changed the way you view our profession?
Yeah, so I've been around the profession for a long time, mostly in a financial position, but I've got to see, lots of aspects of the profession that were interesting, and I developed a real passion for the people who are on the front lines, who do this every day and have made their careers in taking care of families. That was important to me. But I felt like I was always missing just that next piece of really understanding what it was like to be, a funeral professional. And when I was here in Des Moines, um, I volunteered to go speak at the mortuary college here at the local mortuary college, and I thought, this is a program that would be really interesting and helpful for me to really understand the funeral profession. And so about a year and a half ago, I decided to jump in and start taking classes. And at 60 years old, starting to take classes again, it was a little bit of a rude awakening. At first, I thought, okay, I'll take 3 or 4 classes. I can do that while I'm working.
Right.
It shouldn't be that hard. It was a lot harder than I thought. So, so I scaled down my expectations.
You heard it from him first, guys. It's the CEO of Homesteaders. Mortuary school is a challenge.
It is a
And
challenge, right?
it's not something that you think would be hard. Really, it's not something until you have to go into the bits and pieces of everything. It's like, whoa, these are some hard concepts. It's hard concepts to understand.
Yeah, and yeah, anatomy, right? Lots
Right.
of memorization. I'm in anatomy right now, right? So I got through embalming this summer, so that was great. But really fascinating, really helpful for me to really understand, more about the funeral profession and what the people who I've worked with for so many years have gone through to become, to achieve that level of professionalism, so they can go in and serve families at very, very difficult times and navigate it in a way that's going to help the family and not cause more difficulty or more harm. And that's the importance of the professionals in the space, is that you really have to know what you're doing, because this is a really tenuous time for families when they go through a loss, and you don't know what you're going to get. You could,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, families are difficult, people are difficult, and they all deal with loss in a different way. And if you don't have the training, and if you're not a professional, there's just no way you can navigate that successfully. And I've really come to appreciate that, and the commitment. And a lot of times, for younger funeral professionals, the industry can give people students a kind of a bad rap of saying, oh, we don't have great students coming out of school and all that, right? I
Right.
mean, but I've been really impressed with the students who have been my peers in my classes about how passionate they are. Most of them are working in funeral homes, and they're really passionate about the work. and about coming out and serving families. And that has actually really been a positive thing. One positive thing, there's a lot of positive things about doing this, but the biggest positive thing has been just seeing the people who are coming into the profession and feeling good about the fact that there's a good pipeline of people who really care and are passionate and understand that this is not just a job. It
Right.
really
It's a
is.
calling.
It's a calling, and you have to have that passion and the empathy, or you're not going to be successful at it.
Wow. Spoken like the soon-to-be mortuary graduate right there.
Hope so. Fingers crossed.
um, what major changes or trends do you see shaping the future of funeral services over the next decade?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I share in the profession because in my position, I get the opportunity to speak a lot within the profession. I think technology is going to be a big part of how we engage with families. It's not going to replace the personal engagement, but they're going to expect to be able to connect with us through technology to make things easier, clearer, coordinate all the details, that sort of thing. So I do think technology is going to continue to be a bigger part of what we do. Never replacing the personal interaction, but rather kind of supporting it. Because in every other area of of our lives, technology is such a big part of everything we do. And again, that's part of our vision, is to try and help make sure that the technology that we use in funeral service enables that, but it also really still reinforces the in-person part, right? The personal, the empathy, that part, because that's where the real value of funeral service happens, is taking care of those families one family at a time, getting that funeral right. But people are going to want to engage with us using technology, and we want to engage with them using technology so that we reach out to people and help them understand the value of funeral service, the value of commemoration, so that it's not left to them Google searching cremation and everything that comes up says just do a direct cremation, because
Right.
when you Google something, you're going to get you're not going to get the best information the first time. And part of our strategy is to help funeral homes be positioned better to share with more people the value of what we do, because it is so important.
Wow. I like how you said that. That was said very beautifully. Um, as CEO, what principles or habits have guided your leadership at Homesteaders, and how do you keep your team motivated in a mission-driven industry?
Yeah, so the first thing I did when I stepped in as CEO, we realigned our mission a little bit to reflect the fact that in the end, what we do is an insurance policy that backs a pre-funded funeral, but
Right.
what we really do is help families plan for a better farewell. So that gave my team here a more mission-driven job than just being a good insurance company. We are always going to be a good insurance company, right? But people don't get excited about being part of a good insurance company. Well, some people do. The actuaries do. With actuaries, you got to have them. But from a standpoint of what really drives our team, is that we're alongside our funeral home partners. We're helping families at really one of the most difficult times of their life. If they plan in advance and they fund it, then nobody has to fight over who's going to pay the bill. Nobody has to fight over, did we do what mom wants? All of those things all get settled beforehand.
Take out the headache.
Yeah, take out a little bit of that headache, a little bit of the drama, hopefully. And that became our mission. So rather than focusing on the financials and the insurance part of it, let's focus on the people part of it, or what it really does, and help people. And that's been really a good mission shift for us. But it also aligns really well with funeral service, right? So, and it's everything that we were about. We've always been really a good ally to the funeral profession, and are very committed to the funeral profession. But that change in mission from our standpoint helped us really align well with our funeral home partners and saying, yeah, it's about taking care of the people. Yes, we're going to do all the mechanics and all the paperwork and all the other things to be a good insurance company and be there in the long run for families and for our funeral partners. But most importantly, we want to make sure that we remember there's a family on the other end of that policy that just experienced a loss. So we're going to pay our claims quickly, so the funeral home doesn't have to worry about, are they going to get the money or not?
Yes.
Family doesn't have to worry about whether they're going to get paid.
Yes.
We're going to have people here on the other end of the line. So when the funeral home needs to call and get a question answered, they would get to a real person who speaks English and who basically can answer their questions, right? And those are the kind of things that matter when you understand the importance of that funeral service going off right, and that funeral directors are busy. They don't want to have to call back 3 times or get into a phone queue and go through 12 different menu items to get to the right person to get a question answered. They want to talk to a real person who can answer their question right away. So that's a big part of what we do. And it all drives around making sure that we understand the biggest part of the mission is the people we're helping at the other end, which is our funeral home partners and the actual family who's experienced the loss.
Incredible. Mr. Steve, thank you so much for joining me, for taking time out of your day to be with us. I can't thank you enough. Hopefully I have the opportunity to meet you in person at NFDA if you plan to be there.
Yes, I'll be there. I'll be in the booth. Stop by.
Yes, I definitely will. You're just an asset to the industry, and I appreciate you talking to our generation and uplifting us and being the change that we need to see in our industry. Thanks
Well,
for
thank you for the invite. Thank you for being so passionate about funeral service.
yes,
Thank
sir.
you for your service to your community as well. And thanks everybody who's on the call, who sees the podcast, for everything you're doing now to be ready for and to be a service to your community and families. It's so needed. And as I said early on, green lights as far as we can see. Your opportunities are endless. There are going to be a lot more people who need help. So, I know sometimes it can be frustrating. Yeah, every job can be, but if you keep that passion for serving families forefront, you're going to have a great career, and you're going to help so many families that when you look back, you'll be really pleased with having chosen funeral directing as your career. It's going to be a great run.
Incredible. Thanks, Mr. Steve. Catch
Thank
you on the
you.
next one. See you in Chicago.
Yeah. All right. Great.
All
Safe
right.
travels. Thanks. Bye.
Well, guys, that's the end of today's episode. I hope you were blessed and changed by Mr. Steve being on our podcast. Can't wait to see him in Chicago and to meet with him again. Well, guys, I'm your host, Jaden Fowlkes. This is the Millennial Mortician Podcast, a podcast that engraves. Hopefully this episode blessed you guys and gave you a different perspective. Love you guys. Catch you on the next one.